Taking a look at different lawsuits is something of a rather common topic on the channel from time to time. Whenever it has a high-profile plaintiff or defendant, I like to cover it. Or if it's something of an interesting topic, I'll raise it on the channel. Otherwise, I'm paying attention to it in the background if anything develops on this. And this lawsuit in particular between the New York Times and Sarah Palin involving defamation of some form or fashion, I've been tangentially aware of it, and I wasn't going to bring it up because I didn't find it to be terribly interesting. It's a defamation lawsuit. There's a high bar for defamation. It's really tough to prove, especially if you're trying to sue something like the New York Times, one of the most prestigious newspapers in all of the world. Well, this lawsuit ended up going quite far, and why I think that there is a more prominent lawsuit against the New York Times in the background right now, the one involving Project Veritas, and that's something that I'd probably be paying a little bit more attention to. I was mostly just going to leave this lawsuit just kind of hang in the wind, see how it develops, and see if there was any sort of an interesting outcome in this. Well, turns out we ended up getting quite the interesting outcome. Not something that you would expect at all, really, because, okay, the trial went on, okay? Got past multiple hurdles in order to go through a full trial, and now it's in jury deliberations, and all of a sudden, the judge just decided that he was going to issue a verdict notwithstanding of what the jury finds out, and he was just going to dismiss it. If the jury was going to find her victorious on her lawsuit, he was just going to throw it out. Why? What the fuck is going on here? So, let's bring it up here. New York Times wins motion to potentially override any jury verdict in a Palin defamation suit. It's actually a little bit more all-inclusive than that, but let's take a look. Judge Jed Rakoff? Sure. He's a Clinton appointee, by the way, struck a blow to former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin's defamation lawsuit against the New York Times on February 14th, yesterday, when he ruled in favor of a motion by the defense to essentially nullify a jury's verdict in her favor should it come back with one. And we actually have a jury verdict on this one. Very funny how all this shit happens. Officially known as Federal Rule of Civil Procedure number 50, or Rule 50 motion, a motion states that the plaintiff has to have sufficient evidence for every element it needs to prove. Isn't this... I'm not very familiar with this stuff, but the fact that it's already got to jury deliberations... Wouldn't you think? Okay, because this seems like a pretty important statute. This seems like a pretty important rule, a motion that you would bring up before the evidence comes out anyways, or at least at closing statements. When the plaintiff's case rests, wouldn't you be bringing this up then? If you thought that they didn't raise a compelling enough case in order to reach the threshold of the charges filed, wouldn't you be bringing it up then instead of just right now? It's odd. It's odd timing. In this case, the element in question is actual malice, proving this is one of the most difficult of the four being considered by the court. The trial teetering on a razor's edge all morning, editorializing, as Rakoff and lawyers represented both sides of the deliberation. Both sides debated the motion, As was during witness testimony, the definition for the word incitement was scrutinized again, this time reading from two doctrines, or dictionaries. Words are hard sometimes. The jury was not made aware of the motion or its ruling and continued to deliberate for the entire day. Rakoff is intentionally having them reach a verdict so an appeals court will benefit from both decisions. Why is he intentionally screwing up the first trial in order for an appeals court to render a decision? That makes zero sense, okay? He said the case will inevitably wind up before one. Yeah. Because you're doing this muddlefuck of a decision. If you think that the motion is valid that's being presented by the New York Times side of the argument, then you should listen to it, you should grant it, and you should dismiss the case on the face of it, okay? If it gets appealed up from there, so be it. But why would you just deliver this middle-of-the-road decision, okay, to force it to an appeals court? Why? Begs the question now, doesn't it? Rakoff announced his ruling this afternoon. I am not altogether happy to be making this decision. My job is to apply the law. The law here sets a very high standard for actual malice. The court finds that standard has not been met. This deep into proceedings? Interesting. His ruling does not throw the case out. Should the jury come back with a verdict in favor of the defendants, it has no impact. But you already just prejudiced the case by saying, oh no, yeah, actual malice, at least in my opinion, hasn't been granted, hasn't been met in this situation. Interesting. Soon after Rakoff made the announcement, the defense lawyers plus a representative from the New York Times shook hands and patted each other on the back. So that's the entire New York Times cabal. What they just did was taking the verdict away from the jury, Palin told the Times. Yeah, no shit. Katie Sullivan, a Brooklyn-based New York lawyer, told the Epoch Times, I think Rakoff applied the law correctly, but the laws are out of step with common sense and common decency. Today's decision gives the Times the license to lie about a public figure. Should the case go through a successful appeals process, maybe not on the merits, okay, maybe not on the facts of the case, but the fact that this got bungled up so fucking badly is impressive, to say the least. It may then go to the Supreme Court. It would still have to go through a couple of appeals courts, by the way. Like, is this tried in federal court or New York State court? Not entirely sure. So it would still have to go through, a state Supreme Court or even a federal appeals court. So still a couple of levels before it gets to the Supreme Court. So, which in theory could change the way the media operates. Hopefully. Something's got to change, Palin said regarding that. During the course of the day, the jury asked for transcripts of testimonies from witnesses Ross G. Douthat, a New York Times columnist, and James Bennett, the editor and co-writer of the editorial at the heart of the lawsuit. Palin wore a black motorcycle jacket, and I don't care what that has to say because we ended up getting a jury verdict just not that long after a judge decided that he was going to throw out whatever decision the jury was going to render. He already thought that the case was going to get tossed out anyways, so the fact that we found out that the jury finds that the New York Times did not defame Sarah Palin is interesting. It's very, very interesting. Just wow, just happens to coincide with that. A Manhattan federal jury, okay, so this is in the Southern District of New York, which has a whole host of issues with it anyways, ruled Tuesday that the New York Times did not defame Sarah Palin in a 2017 editorial, a day after the judge in the case said he would dismiss the complaint because Palin failed to prove the New York Times. I'm not saying that it just... annoying nickname for that corrupt institution, acted with actual malice. The former Alaska governor will be awarded no damages. Yep, your case has been dismissed, seemingly with prejudice on this one because the jury just came back and just happened to find that the New York Times didn't do nothing. Verdict comes after Judge Jed Rakoff told attorneys for the Times and Palin on Monday he would dismiss the suit when the jury reached a verdict. Rakoff said in the court during the trial Palin and her attorneys failed to provide evidence that the Times and former editorial page editor James Bennett had acted with actual malice towards Palin when they published a 2017 editorial linking her political action committee to a 2011 deadly mass shooting that wounded Representative Gabby Giffords, the wife of now Senator Mark Kelly, which ended up launching his political career. So very interesting how all of these things just kind of intermingle. In remarks, Rakoff criticized the Times, but said the high standard of proving actual malice has not been met. I don't think it was met, but still, go ahead and deliberate. Interesting. I'm not altogether happy to have made this decision on behalf of the defendant. I'm troubled by the fact that the erroneous edits made by Mr. Bennett reasonably could be read by many readers as an accusation that Miss Palin's PAC contributed to the Crosshairs map was clearly and directly linked to the Jared Lee Loughner shooting. So you recognize that defamation is present, but you don't think that it meets the high bar. You think that it happened. It could be reasonably presumed by readers, but you don't think it meets the high standard. Interesting. The June 14th, 2017 editorial was published on the same day the gunman opened fire on GOP members of Congress at the Northern Virginia baseball field. Oh, that's the one where a Bernie bro ended up shooting Steve Scalise. Y'all remember that one. And if you don't, well, the media did a great job of memory holing that one, because that should be another thing if the fucking Democrats are going to be standing January 6th forever. You should be, doing the same thing for June 14th. The piece was supposed to comment on gun control and heated political rhetoric in the United States, but included an erroneous assertion that the map created by Palin's PAC had incited Loughner, a Arizona gunman, who opened fire on Giffords and others in 2011. The language about the 2011 shooting was written in by Bennett and claimed that there was a clear link between the shooting and political incitement, in part because of the map. That seems like defamation, or at least enough for a jury to decide. At least that's what the judge thought, until a motion was brought while deliberations were happening. Before the shooting, Sarah Palin's Political Action Committee circulated a map of targeted electoral districts that put Miss Giffords and 19 other Democrats under stylized crosshairs, the editorial stated. Really? Releasing a map of where these people have jurisdiction over? Really? Miss Palin was subjected to an ultimately unsupported and serious allegation, that Mr. Bennett chose to revisit after the underlying events, Mr. Rakoff said Monday. So I don't mean to be misunderstood. Don't mean to brag, don't mean to boast. He likes hot butter on his breakfast toast. I think this is an example of a very unfortunate editorializing on the part of the Times, he added. Rakoff said he would wait until the jury returned a verdict to dismiss the complaint, but thankfully the jury just magically figured out that, oh wow, we seem to be in accordance, that there's no defamation that happens there. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have eventually came to that conclusion. That's totally on the table, okay? They're allowed to decide whatever the fuck they want, and nobody can question a jury's decision. That's up for them to decide. Unless, of course, there's certain extenuating circumstances, but those are few and far between and awfully rare. I'm just saying, something this high profile comes out and magically within a couple of hours the jury comes to a similar finding, knowing that any excess time that they spend on this case is just going to be rendered moot. There's grounds for appeal on this one. You goddamn well better believe it. So if the judge would have just, you know what, turned down that motion, if they would have just let the jury decide on this one, he could have avoided this shit altogether. But he didn't. He purposely fucked this up. Why? Can't quite tell ya. This really does leave the mind to wonder, now doesn't it? You got the Southern District of New York, you got the New York Times, and you got a Clinton appointee. I'm just saying, there's probably something there. With that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. Why don't you follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.